Well, thank you all for being here today. It's good to see all of you. I am going to talk a little bit about the topic that you see up there, our attitude in the face of change. There's a lot of changes going on. I don't know about your life. Maybe your life is relatively nothing happening, nothing changing, just fine. But definitely a lot of changes going on in my life, that's for sure, and the community in general. A lot of really great things. So excited that Ju Young came and from Kansas and is hopefully going to stay. You know, we're hoping, of course, always. And I also have some news that I feel is a little bit sad, but it's not really sad. But our brother Sam, you know, our wonderful guitar player and singer, he I don't know if you know, but he's been trying to. He went to school for welding recently, and he's been trying so hard to get a job, and he just nothing was working out. He got a temporary thing that was kind of frustrating, and he got a call this week from a company that said, "We have a job for you, but you have to move to Arkansas by this Friday." And I don't think that's the way that he wanted to do things, but it was the moment in his life where he just felt like this is what I need right now. Kind of a new chapter in a way. We hope he comes back. But I told him, Sam, you have to at least come back and visit so that we can have a proper goodbye. Because nobody's happy to just not say goodbye to him. He's been a big part of our life, our community, for I don't know however long he's been here. I really miss him, honestly, already. Just he has a presence that it'll take me a while to get over it. But that's the way it goes. So comings and goings, we have our wonderful missionaries who've been here. They came this week, and they're going to be here for 3 months, and that's a huge change for them, I'm sure. And it's also a change for us too, and I think it's really wonderful. I hope that they have a great experience, and feel free to talk with them and get to know them. They're great people. And we also have the Loves returning this week. They're going to be coming back on Tuesday. So if of course we're going to see them a lot, but I just wanted to have a nice welcome for them. It's been a while, feels like a long time. And so if you want to come this Saturday at 11 for the barbecue in the park, please just come, let me know if possible, it's helpful. But if not, just come, I don't care. We have a lot of people visiting also this week. There's a pastor coming from the Red Hook community in upstate New York, and she wants to see our community and see what there is that she can learn and gains for her efforts there. And so she's going to be visiting. We have a young man visiting from the Czech Republic this week as well. And by the way, I think his travels have depleted him financially. If there's anybody who has an odd job, he asked me to ask if anybody has some work that he can do to make some money. He is happy to do anything. He's also a musician too, but I don't know exactly what. But he's willing to work manual labor or whatever it is. And then also, in a little over a week, we have also Hero's wife and mother-in-law coming to visit as well. So there's a lot of comings and goings this month. And we also may get a GPA team as well. I don't know for sure. So a lot of changes, in the air, and it's good. So it's good things. I mean, I'm not happy that Sam left, but sometimes we need some change in our life. And I'm really grateful for all of you. I gave a sermon a couple weeks ago, and some people expressed some concern about my well-being, and I appreciate it. I appreciate all the encouragement, and also I was a little bit surprised also a number of people came up to me and said that they were also just dealing with some discouragement, some difficulties in their own life, and they felt that they could really resonate with the message. And I felt grateful for that because I feel like sometimes as a pastor, because we have the opportunity to speak to all of you, God sometimes, maybe he has something he wants to say to everybody. So use this opportunity to teach us a lesson that we can share. But also it's a reminder that people are dealing with things in their life and we may not know what they're going through. And sometimes people are dealing with some very difficult things, and it never hurts to make extra effort to reach out and to check on people. That's one thing I also was reminded by. I'm feeling definitely better, not out of the woods, but definitely better. So I really appreciate everybody's support and encouragement. I've had some more time to kind of digest things, get perspective. I also have a really good counselor I've been working with for like the last, I don't know, 6 years or something like that. And every once in a while I'll shoot her an email like, oh, hey, do you have some time? I'd like to have a session, talk about some things. And that was also helpful. And one of the things that she shared with me, here, let me get this off the thing. There we go. One of the things that she shared with me is that, which I think is very true, in that life, we all experience pain sometimes. It's just unavoidable. It's just the reality of life. But we oftentimes conflate pain and suffering. We say they're kind of the same thing. But actually, they're very different things. Pain is unavoidable. Maybe you would call it discouragement or like a disappointment, something like that. But suffering doesn't have to happen just because we have a difficult experience or something happens that we didn't want. She explained to me that suffering comes when we have painful experiences and then we resist those painful experiences. We say, I don't like that happened. I don't want it to ever happen again. We blame, I blame myself. How did I let that happen? What did I do wrong? Or blaming others, why did you do that? How dare you? And many times from that point forward in our life, we try to find ways to avoid ever having to go through that experience ever again. And it's understandable. I mean, like, who wants to relive a bad experience, right? A painful experience. But unfortunately, what happens is that we tend to get stuck there in that space. We tend to get stuck in that experience because we're dwelling on it. We're trying to figure out, what did I do wrong? It's like, it's a downward kind of a spiral, or blaming others and being constantly on the guard for who's going to come into my life and do that thing to me again. And it can kind of take control of the way we lead our life. We don't want it to, like, it's not the plan or the intention, but it happens. So sometimes it's things that happen to us that are malicious or just hurtful, but sometimes it's just circumstances that we don't like. Sometimes it's just change. And I can attest that I've oftentimes felt like, I just wish I could live my life in peace, without responsibility to anyone or for anyone. And a life that is kind of always the same, nothing really changes, nothing difficult comes along that I have to deal with or be confronted by. I'm sure everybody's felt that way at times, but I might be wrong. I don't know. I don't want to put words in your mouth. But I think that in general, a part of us wants that. We just want the peace. We want simplicity. We want nothing to change, especially if things are going well. Like, let's just keep it things this way for as long as possible. And sometimes we think that for some reason things won't change. Like we have a fantasy almost, like things are just not, it's going to be like this forever. Like your marriage. We think, oh yeah, you're in a good space. Like, it's going to always be like this, right? They call it the honeymoon phase. And then at some point you're like, oh, actually we don't, like each other as much as we thought we did, or something came up. You had kids, you lost a job, health problems, and you're like confronted with maybe a different side of the other person you didn't see before, and things don't stay the same. Change is always knocking on our door, whether it's because we're getting older, life, we can't do anything about that. Our families change, we go through different seasons of life, our jobs change, and the world around us is always changing. I mean, this is kind of always something I talk about with people. I don't know, it's just like a rant, I guess, sometimes. That it's interesting that the world's changing so fast, even compared to when I was younger. I'm a relatively young person, but like the world doesn't look the same as when I was growing up, and probably that will just increase over time because everything, technology, and it's all kind of like we were talking about how K-pop Demon Hunters. It just, I don't know if all of you have seen it, but like I'm sure most of you have seen it, and just in such a really short time, like this Korean-inspired K-pop movie has like changed so many people's perceptions around music, and I don't know, it's just a phenomenon. I think like we've watched it 4 or 5 times, something like that. And as much as we would like sometimes for our life to be simple and not change, what I realize in myself is that actually change is a really good thing. Change helps us to see a different side of ourselves, helps us to see that we've grown, helps us to feel that we're alive. It becomes very apparent when we struggle to find a way to change something in ourselves. Maybe there's something in ourselves that we don't like. We realize it's not a healthy way of thinking or a healthy habit, and we try to change ourselves a little bit. And we realize, oh, that's really difficult sometimes. It can actually be very discouraging and feel like, man, maybe I can never change. And we can change, but it isn't easy. So that can be very discouraging if we feel like, oh, I can't change. But so none of us want this, but sometimes we get stuck there anyway. And this is a quote here from our true father, our founder, Reverend Moon. He said, "If you only want easy things, then you will end up in despair. But the person who faces difficulty and tries to conquer it and move on always ends up with hope." There's that word, hope. Remember I gave a sermon on that a month or 2 ago? So important to have hope in our lives, that things can change. So one thing I feel that we've been taught a lot by our true parents and Divine Principle, and it's important to understand that our attitude really matters. Attitude, especially in the face of change, and attitude in the face of adversity. Whether we want to call it a restoration or overcoming our fallen natures, our attitude in the face of change is a part of, is such an incredibly important part of our life. Let's take, for example, the story of John the Baptist in the Bible. John the Baptist is such an important person in the Bible, as I think all of us know, maybe most of us. You know, he was the person that God raised up to be Jesus' right-hand disciple and to prepare a foundation for Jesus so that when Jesus came, John could hand over his whole foundation to Jesus. And then even though Jesus came from very questionable origins, illegitimate child, poor family, that would give Jesus enough foundation to be accepted by the Jewish people and eventually by all the people of the world. And at first, John did. John, he recognized that his purpose in life was to prepare the way for somebody who was to come. He even said it. And he worked hard, and he got a lot of followers, and people really respected him. And people even asked him, "Are you the Messiah? Are you the person we're waiting for?" But John, and when Jesus came, John had a vision. He had an inspiration. This is the Son of God. And he baptized Jesus, and he said, he is the Lamb of God. I don't remember exactly what he said. That was the beginning. But then later, he didn't follow Jesus, and later he doubted Jesus, and later he, I think, it doesn't talk about it so clearly in the Bible, but I could just imagine how difficult that experience must have been for him, because he knew he was preparing the way for somebody, but he didn't know who, and maybe it was a little bit disappointing. He worked so hard in his life, he gained all this respect, all these followers, and then it turns out that he needs to hand over his foundation and humble himself to this relative of his that probably didn't seem very special. Maybe didn't seem worthy of his respect or his foundation. So that must have been a big shift for John. That must have been really hard to digest. That was probably his moment where he, in the face of change or in the face of some kind of adversity, he had to make a decision. And unfortunately, he just chose to go a different way. And we see this similar theme come up throughout the Bible, where we see situations where people kind of went a different direction that God wanted them to. We have the story of Noah, and he did the whole ark, right? He built the ark and the flood, and then he had the 3 kids, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And then it seems like a very victorious story. But then at the end, they found their father drunk and naked, and they were ashamed. And I don't know what happened. But in the Bible, it reflects it as a very bad thing, that they were ashamed of their father, they walked backwards, and they covered him with the blanket. Basically, I imagine a very disrespectful thing to do back then. But the interesting thing is that perhaps they had a certain view of their father to be a certain kind of person. And when he had some kind of a moral or ethical failing of some kind, they were very quick to turn their back on him and be ashamed of their father, who did so much for their family. And it's an interesting story, because in the one sense, maybe Noah shouldn't have gotten drunk and laid around naked. Maybe that wasn't what he should be doing. But that didn't seem to be that big of a deal to God. What seemed to be the big deal was the attitude of his sons, that they would be so ashamed of their father, who sacrificed his whole life for them, their family, and tried to save as many people as possible. We don't know how literally we can take the story of Noah, to be honest. I don't know how much we should take literally and how much is more a symbolic aspect of the story. But this one part of the relationship between Noah and the kids seems to be very critical, like a very critical part of the story. And it makes me think, even after a whole life of work, a whole life of investment and sacrifice, the attitude that you have to somebody like that when they have a moment of weakness is kind of a big deal in God's eyes. It kind of helps me it makes me think I have to be careful. It's very easy to jump to conclusions. It's so easy to judge people because they made a mistake. We see it with the Israelites too, right? They're slaves. They're slaves for generations. And Moses comes and takes them out of slavery and into the wilderness. And after a while, they're like, you know what? It maybe would have been better if we just stayed in Egypt. At least as slaves, we were fed regularly, even though, they weren't treated well. And their attitude, even though Moses went through all of this effort, and God went through all of this effort to take them out of Egypt with a plan to give them a better life. But their attitude was of resisting change. Thank you. Resisting change. We all want good changes in our life, but we grapple between wanting things to stay the same or being comfortable with things the way they are, even if they're not great. And then when change comes along, resisting it, almost out of habit or just because we don't want to lose what is already we're accustomed to, even if it's not great. On the opposite side, because we don't want to just dwell on people that resisted change and delayed God's providence, we have many examples of people who embraced change and who embraced difficulty and overcame it for the betterment of themselves and for God's benefit and for all of future humanity. And these are people like Jacob in the story of Jacob and Esau. Jacob, he ran away because he kind of cheated his brother out of the birthright. His brother wanted to kill him, which seemed pretty justified, actually, if you read the story. But he ran away to his uncle, Uncle Laban, and he ended up there for 21 years where he was cheated and lied to, given the wrong wife a couple times, which is hard to fathom in today's society, but I guess it worked that way back then. And, it wasn't, I'm sure, what he was expecting, but he embraced those difficulties. He embraced the opportunities that came into his life, even though they weren't what he wanted or what he was asking for. And eventually, over time, he accumulated a big polygamous family and a lot of wealth. And he went back to, it's just what it is, I'm not saying that's just what they did then. And, he brought all of his fruits of his effort and suffering, or pain, and he brought that to his brother and offered it all to him. And he won his brother's heart. And that's why the three Abrahamic faiths come from Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So from all of that. And then we have, of course, Jesus. I could go on and on. Jesus, in the face of the difficulties that came his way and the way that things didn't work out the way he had hoped, and people not being faithful, Jesus never, I would say it's probably fair to say that I don't think that he suffered. I think he was in pain. It was a painful experience. But Jesus obviously did not blame and curse the people. And then we look at Paul, and we look at our own true parents too. There's a similarity. When we look at all these figures in the Bible, we look at Jesus, we look at Paul, we look at our true parents, and we see a similar attitude in the face of change and in the face of adversity, which is to embrace the changes that are brought to you, to uplift those people, to reconcile, to love, to repent, to overcome. And I think that that's probably not the only defining difference. I'm sure there's many. But when I look at the similarities, I feel like it's maybe an important reminder, for a lesson for us in our life, that things aren't always going to go our way. That change is going to come into our life. Some of those changes we'll be thrilled about, right? Somebody, you got a better job, you got a raise, or you have more children, or good things, right? Good changes come into our life, changes that we're very happy about. And then we have changes that we're not happy about, things that we don't like, things that we wish didn't happen to us. But attitude, my takeaway from all of this is that our attitude is important, especially when change comes into our life that we don't want, we don't appreciate. We wish that things wouldn't change. We never know what God may be trying to do in our life, may be trying to do in the world. That whatever God is doing is going to require some change, I think. It just seems reasonable to me that change is necessary. I think it's important to be patient and not to make too many assumptions, not to be hasty, because sometimes at surface level, change seems bad. But sometimes when things pan out, and as time goes by, then we see, oh, I can see what God was trying to do through this. I've had that experience. I feel like kind of embarrassed sometimes, because sometimes I jump to the conclusion that if something happens, that, God's abandoned us, or, this is so bad, how could this happen? Who's to blame? Or what did I do wrong? But sometimes that's just the way things seem on the outside. That's not really what they are on the inside. one quote I want to kind of finish with here. In such a moment, you must not react quickly or make a hasty judgment. At such times, you must call on the name of God and remind yourself, this is my opportunity to prove how worthy I am. Then the difficulty can become a joy, and you can take delight in going through the ordeal. My message to you is to persevere and not react quickly or make hasty judgments. Then you can convert all your ordeals into joy and a source of pride. Please join me in prayer. Good morning, our dearest Heavenly Parent. Heavenly Parent, thank you for opportunity for all of us to be here this morning. I just pray and hope that your presence and your spirit can be felt. Heavenly Parent, how much you must wish to touch the lives of each of your children in a way that they can really feel and know that you are there for them. And so much we go through life not even acknowledging or recognizing that you are in our life, that you are working in our life, Heavenly Parent. And sometimes working in our life in ways in which we don't expect or even welcome. But Heavenly Parent, I pray that we can have bigger minds and bigger hearts to see that the things that are happening in the world, in our lives, may have your hand in them, Heavenly Parent. There may be something you are doing powerfully in those circumstances. But Heavenly Parent, no matter what, we want to learn from those who came before us, who gave so much, Heavenly Parent, and people who really tried but just couldn't overcome the things that they were going through, Heavenly Parent. But especially the people who really could overcome and could really see your heart and could have your heart in these times of change and times of difficulty, Heavenly Parent. Please give us the strength or the ability to inherit that heart, to be patient and to have gratitude, even when unexpected or unwelcome changes come into our life, Heavenly Parent. Help us to be grateful no matter what. We can spend our life angry or bitter about the things in our life that we didn't want, Heavenly Parent. But we know that it's not that you wanted us to go through these things, Heavenly Parent, but you do want to see us overcome them. You don't want to see us stuck in those experiences, stuck in those feelings of anger or fear or doubt, Heavenly Parent. Please give us the strength, because sometimes we are very weak, to overcome and to find your perspective in all of these things, Heavenly Parent. Please help us to grow and mature to become children, Heavenly Parent, that you can entrust with more and give more. I thank you, and I offer this time to you on behalf of all our blessed families here. Amen and Aju. Thank you.